Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Robotics Healthcare Challenge, Robotic Solutions. This is the second time that our House Robotics Caucus has met in the 111th Congress, particularly regarding the healthcare aspects of the robotics industry. Let me briefly introduce myself to you. I'm Phil Gingrey, MD, 31 years of that before getting elected to the United States House back in 2003 in the 108th Congress, and the Robotics Caucus this year in this Congress to co-chair the group along with my good friend from Pennsylvania, Representative Mike Doyle. And our caucus is growing, I might add. We have several new members, including an additional member from Georgia, Representative Sanford Bishop from Southwest Georgia. All of them could not be here today, but we have a great panel that we're going to hear from. And before we do that, I'll give a little brief bio in each one of the four, and then call on them to come up and speak to you. I have some opening remarks that I would like to make. And then after they get started, I'm going to have to run out because we're in the middle of something else. You know how that is on the Hill. You're always in the middle of something else, whether it's voting. We just got off the floor voting. So as I say, this is the second briefing on the use of robotics in the healthcare industry. Over the past several years, there have been a number of technological advances that have greatly assisted the industry and as a result have helped patients. At a time when healthcare reform legislation is being debated and scrutinized, indeed, is it ever? I'm going to have to turn my pages here. Bipartisan groups like the one we have today will enlighten us all on the innovation in healthcare robotics. I practiced medicine for over 30 years, obstetrics and gynecology, and just in the time that I have left my practice 8 years ago, I am so impressed with the breakthroughs that have already occurred, and certainly I anxiously await any future technological developments. The use of robotics in healthcare is incredibly important for a number of reasons. As advances are made in robotic technology, care for patients will become less invasive, less traumatic, and will yield, hopefully, a more precise outcome. However, we need to, if I had time, I would have memorized every page. We need to work to ensure that the use of robotics in care is cost effective for the patients. Now look, I was scheduled last week to be with a gynecologic oncology surgeon, cancer surgeon for gynecology, back in my district at our local hospital, Wellstar Kennestone Hospital, to just see exactly what he could do with robotics in performing very extensive advanced surgery for things like ovarian cancer. Now I can tell you that when I was in training and when I was in practice, of course, the routine OBGYN doctor didn't do a lot of cancer surgery. But when we had those patients, we would always actually try to assist in the surgery and be there to learn, and also as an act of compassion for those patients that really still would look to us for postoperative care. And this kind of surgery was so extensive. I am absolutely amazed that you could do it in a robotic way. So I cannot wait to have the opportunity to meet with Dr. Gerald Fura and to watch him perform this difficult intrinsic surgery, and hopefully I'll get to do that in the very near future. Let me just say one last thing, and then I'm going to give you some brief bios and introduce some folks that you really need to hear from. I mentioned already so costly. And we're trying to fix something that already costs too much, that 47 million people can't afford to. It costs more than the previous thing or things. And I hope some of our speakers will talk about that, because we want to provide better care. We want it to be less invasive, less traumatic to the tissue, allow the patient to recover more quickly from pain and suffering from the trauma of surgery, and to get better 5-year survival rates and cures from whatever it is that we're operating on in this robotic fashion. So I just want to tell you that that's something that's hugely important, and we need to think about the cost. Every time we have an innovation, we need to think about the cost. All right, look, first of all, I'm going to introduce to you Tandy Trower. Tandy, you want to raise your hand so folks will... Tandy is the general manager of Microsoft Robotics. Tandy is a 26-year Microsoft veteran who is now the general manager of Microsoft Robotics. Tandy's been involved in most Microsoft products that we know of today. He began his career when Microsoft had just 90 employees. Tandy was selected by Bill Gates to get Microsoft serious about robotics. His presentation today will cover healthcare challenges and robotic solutions, and include addressing issues regarding our aging population. Maya Matarik, Maya, did I do okay on that pronunciation? PhD, I can pronounce that. Director, Center for Robotics and Embedded Systems at USC. Maya is a professor of computer science and neuroscience at the University of Southern Cal. Founding director of the USC Center for Robotics and Embedded Systems, co-director of the USC Robotics Research Lab, and a senior associate dean for research in the USC Viterbi School of Engineering. She received her PhD in computer science and artificial assistive robotics for personalized care for stroke, autism, and Alzheimer's disease. My dad, who died back in 1980, had a stroke and a movement disorder because of midbrain infarction. And I remember taking him to Duke, and the way they did his surgery, even back then, was getting close to robotics, but it was not quite there. So maybe Maya might want to even comment on that.